Hello everybody, welcome to Knowledge India once again. In this particular tutorial, I'm going to talk to you about AWS Lambda. As some of you might already know, Lambda is a service from AWS which allows you to execute your code in a serverless manner. What do we mean by serverless here? The idea is that you would be able to execute your code without having to manage any servers. Of course, the code gets executed on a machine that is there, but you do not have to take the responsibility of managing that machine or server, right? Which means you don't have to worry about the operating system running on that server, the security patches which need to be applied on that server and things like that. So we will talk more about Lambda. In this tutorial, I'll show you a demo also of the same, and I'll try to explain you that while you are specifying a Lambda function or while you are creating a Lambda function, what all things you need to take care of, how does the pricing work, and everything. So before we go forward, just quickly to let you know, we have a lot of tutorials on AWS. You can look at our playlist on our YouTube channel, Knowledge India. And I request you to subscribe so that you get all the updates, right? Please look at 60 plus videos which are there on our channel. All right, moving forward, I have put some of the key things here which I want to explain you quickly first, and then I want to show you a demo of the Lambda. First of all, as I told you, this is serverless, so the meaning is you don't have to go and maintain any servers, no machines to be maintained where your code actually runs. In how many languages can you write your code? You can actually write it in 5 languages now. Earlier it was only C#, Java, Python, and Node.js. Recently, Go also got added. Right, Go is a language which is recently becoming popular. I think Google has a lot of contribution in developing that. So now that is also supported. Uh, Whenever you are going for development, you should check the documentation to know that what's the current version of a particular language which is supported, because slowly they keep upgrading. They increase, or they start supporting more and more versions. Now, I told you that it is serverless and you don't have to maintain the machine where your code is running. So the next question would be, how do I understand that how much power do I get? Meaning, how many resources do you get, right? For example, if one of your function is running, how much CPU access, how much CPU does it get? How much memory does it get? How much RAM access does it get? So Lambda allows you to specify that while you are creating the function itself. Okay, so when you it gives you many levels of resources. So the lowest level is 128 MB of memory. Okay, and accordingly you get the CPU as well. They do not allow you to specify exactly how much CPU you will get, but it is like proportional, right? So as you increase the memory, you will also get more CPU. So the lowest resource level which you could allocate to your Lambda function is 128 MB. And the maximum could be 3 GB, which is 3008 MB, around 3 GB. Yeah, so if you have a function which consumes a lot of memory, not to worry, Lambda can support that as well. So that's first thing. Second is, for how long can this function run? Now, if this Lambda function which you are writing, if it runs forever, then it becomes equal to, or it becomes same as running a machine altogether, right? So there is a limitation on the amount of time for which a Lambda function can run. And currently that limitation is 5 minutes. So a Lambda function would automatically die after 5 minutes. So maximum duration is 5 minutes. Okay. And why have I written that it can run between 100 milliseconds and 5 minutes? Because 100 milliseconds is the lowest unit for calculation, for price calculation. So how does the pricing work for in case of Lambda? It depends on two factors. First is the resource level chosen. So for example, if you are executing one function, right? For that execution, how much of resources got used? And that gets decided based on what you have chosen when you are creating your function. I'll show you the same in the demo. The second factor is for how much time did your function run, or did your function got executed, how much time did it take. So whatever would be the time, it will get rounded off to the nearest 100 millisecond, not even to a second, to the nearest 100 millisecond. So that way also you save money, right? You are not paying for the time when your function is not running. You are not paying for any machine which is just there standby and not executing your code. So on these two factors, your pricing depends. Okay, Um and as I told you, you're not wasting money. I'll also show you that when you are creating a Lambda function, you may specify an IAM role for your function. Why would that be required? I'm sure you people would have already seen the video on IAM and you understand what IAM role enables, right? IAM role actually delegates rights to a particular service. So for example, if you are writing a Lambda function, which would actually go ahead and let's say start your EC2 instances at 9 a.m. in the morning, and then it will go ahead and stop your EC2 instances. There's another Lambda function which can go and stop your EC2 instances at 6 p.m. in the evening. Now, in order to call start instances EC2 API and stop instances EC2 API, you need to have rights, right? And the way you can actually give these rights to a particular service is via IAM role. So you can go ahead and create an IAM role which can be assumed by Lambda service, and you will give permissions for start instances and stop instances. So understand, in case your Lambda function is calling AWS related APIs, it would be required that you give an IAM role to your Lambda function. If you are still not clear about IAM role, I request you to see my video which is there on IAM role to understand it in more detail and how to create a role and for policies and everything else. Second part is it also supports VPC. Now, sometimes your Lambda function might need to access a resource which is private within your VPC. For an example, maybe within your VPC in private subnet you have got a web service running. You may be having a database running, and in case your requirement is that your Lambda function should process and then probably do an entry into your database, right? Now, because your database is in private subnet, it cannot be accessed outside of your VPC. Now, in order to solve such things, you may specify your VPC ID when you are creating the Lambda function, and with that, the access of your Lambda function would be enabled to your VPC, which means your Lambda function would be able to reach to any IP address, even to any private IP address within your VPC. So it can hit your database and it can write to your database if you want. Okay, so this is optional. The IAM role and VPC, both of these fields are optional. Only if you require, you need to give them. I'll show you where it comes just in the demo in few minutes. All right, so when we write this function, how does it get executed, right? So Lambda function could be executed manually, but of course, in case of production, you are not going to do that. But it can be scheduled. You can schedule that it should run, let's say, as I was giving you an example, you can have a Lambda function which runs every morning 9 a.m. And what it does is it goes and starts your 20 EC2 instances. And there's another Lambda function which runs at 5 p.m. in the evening. It just goes and shuts down or turns off all the 20 instances, right? So it could be scheduled. The next thing is, or next mechanism is, it can be event based as well, which means if a particular event or activity happens on an AWS service, then as a result of that, your Lambda could be invoked. For example, if you remember, I have a video on S3 in very detail. You can go ahead and look at it. I've shown it there. Within your S3, you have option of event notifications. So, for example, if somebody puts a file into your S3 bucket, as a result of that event, you can go ahead and send a notification to an SNS topic. You can put a message into a queue, SQS queue, or you can invoke a Lambda function as well. And then whatever logic you have written in the Lambda function, that will get executed. Sometimes people do use Lambda function to create thumbnails. So for example, a big size image, a wallpaper size image, has been uploaded into your S3 bucket. And then as part of event notification, a Lambda function gets fired, and this Lambda function picks this image, creates a small thumbnail out of it, keeps it into a folder, and then goes away. Right? So that's an example. You can look at all the services from which a Lambda function could be executed. I have written some of them here on the screen. Lambda starts very quickly. When you try to invoke it, or when an event happens, in response to that, it starts within milliseconds. So the response is really fast. It doesn't wait for a long time. That's really good thing. And within free tier, if you are getting started in free tier, in your free tier AWS account, you can go ahead and try Lambda. You get a lot of credits. Okay. Quickly, before we just go to the demo, when should you consider Lambda instead of EC2? As I've already told you some time back, there is a limitation on the amount of time for which a Lambda function could run. Hence, whenever you have a standalone piece of code, meaning code which runs for some time, that result is calculated, and then it can be stored somewhere, right? You need not maintain the state for very long. For such standalone codes, you may go ahead and use Lambda function, right? Okay, and also because the machine on which Lambda is running, you don't have to maintain it, you don't have to worry about its OS update and all the patches to be applied and all such things, how to scale. You don't have to worry about auto scaling, setting up auto scaling and all. In such scenarios also, you can go ahead and use Lambda function. What I'm trying to explain you here is that, think of this. You might have an application which calls Lambda function, let's say 2 Lambda functions concurrently currently. It's very simple now. Then your business increases, and then you are able, your requirement is to launch, let's say 50 or 100 Lambda functions concurrently. You don't have to do anything for that, right? If you are launching 2 currently, you pay for it. If you are launching 100, you pay for that. You don't have to worry about going and doing anything at the backend to enable the servers and machines so that your Lambda function can run. That's the good thing there. Okay, so I have also put a link here where you can go ahead and look at the limits of Lambda function. It would be helpful. I suggest that you just look at it. There is one important thing on concurrency limit, which means that within your account per region, how many concurrent Lambda function instances could be running, or Lambda function invocations could be running, right? For example, I write a function called function1, right? And if I invoke 100 functions, 100 such, if I invoke that function, like 100 invocations in parallel, so that's the concurrency at that time. So there is a limit on this parallel invocations, right? I think the normal, the current limit is 1,000 per region, but if you have a requirement, there is a way that you can request AWS to increase that as well. So I'll leave this link in the description. You may go ahead and look at it later on. I'll now go ahead and try to show you a demo, a simple demo, so that you understand that how do we set up and how do we make it happen. All right, so what I'm gonna show you is in my account, I have launched 2 EC2 instances in 2 different regions. In North Virginia, you can see I have 1 instance running. In the same way, in California, I have 1 instance running. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to write a Lambda function. So I'm here on the Lambda in North Virginia. Again, Lambda is also a region level service. So I'm going to create a function. What it would do is it would go ahead and take snapshot of all the EBS volumes which are attached to any of the EC2 instances in any of the region, right? So ideally, what should happen as a result of this Lambda execution is that I have got 1 EBS volumes attached to both the EC2 instances. So for both of them, snapshots should get created. Okay, all right. So let us go ahead and create that function. I'll just quickly tell you, I have not written down that function. I just picked it up from internet. Here is the link from where I have picked it. and I'll just show you. I can even leave this link in the description. So if you want, you can go ahead and take a look. In terms of writing the code, those of you who are programmers who have been writing code, it is just how you write and call APIs, how you write loops and everything. Okay, so I just picked one to explain you. So in the Lambda function, in the Lambda, I'll go ahead and say create a function. Now there are few blueprints, meaning based on blueprints are like if you want to use a pre-written template, right, for scenarios like if an S3 event is happening or if other event is happening from some other service, you can go ahead and use that. I'm just going to use from scratch, so that means it is going to be blank, and let us give it a name. Um, let's call it automate snapshot. That's the name of the Lambda function. I'm going to use Python 2.7 as the language. Now, next thing is role. So as I explained you that my function is going to take snapshots. Now, in order to execute or in order to take snapshot, it is an AWS related function, right? So there is an IAM permission or IAM action called create snapshot, which would be required. So we need to give that permission to our Lambda function, and the way we would be able to do that would be with an IAM role. So I've already created an IAM role. So I'm just saying choose an existing role, and here is the role which I've created. So what permissions are given, I will leave you this thing here. The permissions are given. It is nothing but it's very simple. As part of this role, we are giving permissions like create snapshot, delete snapshot won't be required, but create snapshot, create tags, etc. would be required. So I've created that already. So I'll just choose that IAM role. We'll go next, create function. Now we will go ahead as part of designer, you can go ahead and choose if any of the services, if any of the events from these services have to trigger your Lambda function. We are not doing that because for this demo, I'll just go ahead and execute it manually and show you. Okay. All right. So here, see, you can write your code inline. You can put your code here directly, and the file is lambda-function.py Python file. So you can put your code here, and within this file, Lambda function, Lambda handler would be the first function from where the execution would start. You can also upload a zip file, or you can, pick up file from Amazon S3. When and all the zip file thing would be useful. Those you might know that sometimes your code, your file would actually refer code in other files, or sometimes you also use some jar or some DLL and things like that. So you can put all of them in a zip and upload that as well. That's also possible. Okay, so you can make use of any dependent library files and so on. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put the function here. So here is the code. I'll just copy and paste. I can quickly explain it to you as well. So I'll just put it. If you see what is happening here, in this function, we are first trying to get all the regions into a particular array, and after that, we are we are running a loop. We are going in every region, trying to get all the EC2 instances, and within that EC2 instance, the volumes which are attached. And then we go ahead and basically this is just a print. These comments are gonna get printed into the logs. I'll show you the logs as well. All the logs from Lambda function automatically get exported to CloudWatch. So I'll show you those as well. And what happens is then you can see that create snapshot function is getting called, which will create a snapshot of the volume, right? And you can also see that we are tagging it. We are tagging it with the name of the volume that from which it got created, right? So, all right. So we will go ahead and execute it. You can look at this code. So after putting this thing, we need to move forward. Sometimes as part of your code, you also need to specify some environment variables. If needed, you can do that. Tags, same like EC2 instances. If you apply tags here, and let's say if it is a cost allocation tag, it flows down to your detailed billing file. So if you want to specify, you can go ahead and specify tags here. Role part we have already talked. IAM role. Settings. I'm keeping it at 128 MB because this is not going to take a lot of memory. So I'm just keeping it at 128 MB. I can increase it up to 3 GB as I told you earlier. And timeout. This is important. I told you that a Lambda function can execute for maximum 5 minutes, right? But still, you go ahead and specify a timeout. So though though sorry, though 5 minutes is the maximum time, but you can specify. Let's say in my case, I'm gonna specify 2 minutes as the timeout. Now, it's important to understand that though you are specifying timeout as 2 minutes, if the execution of your code gets completed, let's say in 1 minute or lesser than that, you get charged only for the actual execution time and not for the timeout. Okay, so I had also told you about the VPC thing. So if you want to give VPC, you can choose VPC. In our case, it's not required because it is not going to it is not going to access any of the resources which are running inside VPC. All my code does here is that it calls API. And in order to call API, roles are required. And we have given the role. Okay, we have given the correct IAM role. If you want to specify any dead letter queue, you can do. I'm not doing that currently. Concurrency, for now I'm just doing unreserved concurrency. You can also reserve concurrency for yourself. This got introduced some time back. If you want, you can look at it. All right, so I'll go ahead and save this. My function gets saved. My function name is automate snapshot. Now, once it is saved, I want to go ahead and test it. So let us configure a test event. As such, we don't have to pass any value. So I'm just gonna call, let's say, testing lambda as the test event. Right? We don't have to pass any value, so I'm just giving it a name. And now I'll go ahead and try to test. So before I press the test button, I want to quickly go and look at the snapshots. Let's go and look at the snapshots in both the regions. So in North Virginia, let us see, there is nothing. And in California also, there is nothing. All right, good. So we'll go here and we'll say test. Now it should get executed. We'll just give it a few seconds. So what's happening currently is that the code is trying to go through each and every region, trying to list what all instances are running there, and then getting the EBS volumes which are attached to those instances, and then creating a snapshot for all of them. So as you can see, it got completed. You can see the logs are visible. I'll just click here. This will take us to CloudWatch logs, where we'll be able to see the logs which got written. So as you can see, here is the CloudWatch log. Let us click here and try to see. So it is checking each and every region, as you can see. So in US East 1, North Virginia, it has found that there was an EBS volume and it started backing it up. In the same way for California, it has backed up and it got all completed. Please see that the duration is 15,600 millisecond, right? So if we check it, it would be, I think, 15.6 seconds. So though I had specified 2 minutes as the timeout, I will get charged only for 15.6 seconds. As I told you, in terms of pricing, it gets rounded off to the nearest 100 milliseconds. So actual execution time was 15,598 and it got rounded off to 15,600. Now let us go ahead and check whether it did it work. So I'll go ahead and refresh this. And we should see a snapshot. Yes. So you can see here is the snapshot. In the name, actually, it was hard-coded by Lambda was coming. I saw that while explaining the code. And in the description, whatever you want to specify, that thing is there. In the same way, in North California, so you can customize your code and you can put whatever you want. It's your choice. So as you can see, this is created. So I hope you have understood. Now this Lambda function is there, and now only for the time it got executed, I'll get charged. So I can use the Lambda function in a very easy manner to actually go ahead and automate such stuff where I want to run something based on a schedule, or I want to go ahead and execute some code based on an event. That's it for this particular session. I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. Please look at the description. I will leave all the required links there. I request you to please share this video if you got benefited, if it is helping you. And if you are learning AWS, please look at our uh, playlist. We have a lot of practical videos explaining different concepts of AWS. I request your support in terms of sharing this. So please hit like and share the video. Thank you guys. Remain subscribed and I'm bringing a lot more videos very soon. See you again. Bye bye.